Okay, everybody, this is Dr. Dan Davidson. I'm the CEO of Business Star Makers, and this video is about spiritual DNA. Okay, I wrote a book in 2006 called Spiritual DNA, and I will be writing the next volume of this book, Spiritual DNA. So soon you will be able to buy this on Amazon and all the other major bookstores. Spiritual DNA. So what is spiritual DNA? Deep within each of us, there is a spiritual code. A spiritual code. Just like there is a DNA on a physical code, which we did not know till recently. Okay, just in the 70s, Watson and associates discovered the DNA code, and I wrote the chapter or the article about psychospiritual medicine in the 90s, and I created the term psychospiritual medicine in the 90s. And I've been talking about spiritual DNA. And I believe, and there's a lot of research about it, that we have a spiritual DNA just like we have physical DNA. And that there is a connection between spirituality and our wellness. And now the research is showing that that is to be true. And that if we are spiritually ill, little by little, it starts to show itself on a physical realm. And also that there is a connection between spirituality, psychology, and physicality. Nobody knew this. When I was talking about it in the early 90s, it was voodoo. As a doctor, a surgeon, when I talked about it, they thought I was wacko. And, talking about that was voodoo medicine. But I have a doctorate in natural medicine, and I was an ever, curious kind of a man, and I always was studying all kinds of things, and natural medicine was one of those things. So got a doctorate in natural medicine in 1993, along with my medical degree. And spiritual, aspect of things was something that as I was telling the story of my life, was born in it. My grandfather was teaching me spirituality from the day I was born. I was basically born in it. So to me, that was just a natural phenomenon of what I had been raised to believe, that spirituality was a part of existence. It was not a far-fetched thought. And Norman Cousin, Dr. Norman Cousin, or Cousin, I don't know how he pronounces his last name, I'm sorry, had written an amazing book and at the time, and he had shown that if you actually are happy, happiness makes even cancer heal. Patients who had been happy and watched comedy shows and were suffering from cancer, they healed themselves and did well, a whole lot better than patients that didn't, and had proposed that there was a connection. And this was when I was in medical school in the late 80s, that there was a connection between mind and body, and this became famous as mind-body medicine connection. And I believed and believe that there is a spiritual connection with the body, and there is a psychospiritual medicine. So that's why I call it psychospiritual medicine. And I trademarked the term, and I've been researching it. And there is a research that had, not a research, multitude of researches now since 1990s that I initially proposed it, that has shown the absolute connection between spirituality and medicine and body's healing and everything else that goes along with that. And it's shown that you can pray for someone sitting in your room, someone across the world, and that person doesn't even know that you're praying for them, and in fact they could be benefiting from it and their condition would be healing better than someone else who has the same exact medical condition, all the same laboratory results, all the same, let's say, cancer, the same stage, everything else, and you are not praying for, the group of people are not praying for that person, but they're praying for this person will heal, better results, better healing outcome, everything else, versus the other person who isn't, for him there's no prayer. And it's been shown that there is a potential benefit to individuals when there is a prayer and there is positive thoughts and energy of prayer and spirituality in many different ways. There's been shown that even negative thoughts, negative words, curse has an effect. There's so many of this connections now being identified scientifically. We're not talking, claims, we're talking science. And that is what I am. I'm a scientist. I'm not someone who talks anecdotally, makes things up, says things without basis. I only believe in what I see in science. I believe in terms of science. Even business, I do it in terms of science. I have to do it by data. I have to look at numbers. My guys, they have to show it to me in terms of data. If they cannot produce data, I don't believe it. I say, go and show me the data. If you're coming to me and say, oh, this campaign is working, show me. Show me the numbers. You can't show me the numbers, I don't believe it. Go show me the numbers. Produce the numbers, come back. So that's how I do business. And that's the same thing with everything else. Medicine, business, doesn't matter. In this life, if it's not real in terms of logical terminology and science, I don't believe it. At the same time, I'm a visionary and I can sort of plan things 30 years in advance. I can have a very big vision about things and all of that too. So I have a great imagination. So it's not to say I'm just a tunnel vision kind of guy, but that when it comes down to believing things and making a claim and stating things, I don't state things with certainty and honesty and making a claim unless it is scientific and is real. So two different ways. It's one thing to talk in terms of belief and vision and hope and generalities and being a visionary, being a leader. It's another to be talking about things in terms of science, in terms of specific things, specificity, and being logical and being exact and precise and being specific. So they're two different things. CEO and CEO. They're both CEOs and we both do both. So as a visionary CEO, we plan something 30 years, 40 years, we plan it so that it's a very successful company and we intend to reach that success, but we also have to plan it with numbers and intend to get there with numbers and also see the numbers in reality of now and then, projections and everything else. So with that being said, now we're coming back to what I was talking about, spiritual DNA. Each of us has a spiritual, there's no specific science yet that has shown this, so we're doing a research on this, that I believe will, God willing, be present in our time, in our lifetime, maybe soon enough, that shows that this to be true. And the reason I say this is because you cannot separate psychology from spirituality, even in our own lifetime and ever even before, and I'm sure in the future, because they're interwoven, interconnected. You know, people's psychology and spirituality is interconnected. Even right now, I said God willing. It is interconnected. When I talk in terms of psychology, a lot of what I say is determined by how I feel about things from a psychological and spiritual point of view. And my spiritual point of view has to do with a lot of my spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs and upbringing. And that's true for everyone. So my psychology is interconnected with my spirituality and religious upbringing. You cannot separate someone's psychology and say, I don't want to hear anything about your spirituality. You can't do that. So as a psychologist, you're trying to help someone and heal someone and resolve their issues and discuss their issues. You need to keep in mind that those issues are interwoven with their spirituality. Correct? If someone is a very devout religious individual, their psychology and spirituality is interconnected. You cannot just look at their psychology and ignore their spirituality. It doesn't work. It's interconnected. So it's a psycho-spiritual, interwoven state. So as a psychologist, you're actually a psycho-spiritualist. And that's why I call this psycho-spiritual medicine. It's really a combination of the two that you're constantly dealing with, whether you like to acknowledge it or not. There was a time in the, past that they decided to separate church from a state. So there was that agreement put in place that, hey, church is church, state is state, and then that sort of extended to medicine. Religion is religion, medicine is medicine, but human body doesn't care. Spirituality and physical body are interconnected because the mind connects them. Whether you like it or not, whether you have an agreement or not, medical board likes it or not, whoever likes it or not, the human body doesn't care. If you want to heal me, you better consider my spirituality, my psychology, and my physicality all at the same time. It's interconnected. There's only one way to heal me. You got to consider me as a whole. Psychology, spirituality, and physicality. It's interconnected. That's just the way it is. And now, talking about the spirituality, we each have our own spiritual DNA. And what does that mean to us as leaders is that your spiritual DNA has a lot to do with who you are as a leader, as a business leader, since this is a business discussion. Right? businessstarmakers.com. But I'm more of a leader than just a business leader or business teacher, professional, because I have channels on different subjects and I also talk about different things, medicine, business, healthcare of different kinds, other than just medicine. I have degrees in different things, as you understand. So these subjects are interconnected in my mind. And I talk about it in different channels and different things. But as a business conversation, even as a business conversation, you as a business leader, you need to comprehend that your spirituality has a whole lot to do with what you do in your profession. First of all, playing win-win, for example, is huge, because if you are a spiritual individual, you have to play win-win. You have to be honest, you have to be decent, you have to be good, you have to play by the rules of spirituality if you want to work and win. You have to work by those spiritual rules that are within you so you can connect and allow those rules to apply in your world and help you along. You can't go against them and expect that to apply positively. I've learned. If you're going against it and then you want that to help you, it's not going to work, because you're going against the rules and then you expect the rules to work for you, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you're generating a negative energy, but you want the positive energy to be circulating in your life, it doesn't work. You got to be in an environment where you're creating the right and setting for the right energy to circulate. So you've got to be, creating honesty, decency. You got to bring in positive people around you. You got to do the positive things. You got to play win-win. You cannot play win-lose. You cannot be cheating people. You cannot be hurting people. You cannot be doing all the wrong things and then expect the right results. You cannot be doing all those bad things, because then it's just going to backfire. It's going to run those positive things out of your business. Make sense? So it's just not, some people are like, they leave the business as, oh, it's just business. Business is business. Religion is religion. Spirituality is religion. No, it doesn't work like that. Integrity and ethics and all this is interconnected. So you cannot separate it. And it's a very important side of this, because if you're separating it, and we got to work on that. It's hard, because in our communities, it's challenging and it's hard. Even in business, it's hard. Even when I say business, I mean in the business world, in the big business world, okay? Because even big business doesn't play it like this, okay? For example, there is a very well-known case called the Ford Pinto case, okay? Which we studied in the business school, okay, if I recall correctly. In the business school, there was a Pinto, which was a small Ford design, and was very affordable Ford in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, I remember it, okay? When I came to, when I was a high school kid, there was a Ford. It had a hatchback, ugly Ford, and they made a hatchback like this and put the gas tank in the bottom of the hatchback. So there was no back, basically. The back was glass, and the gas tank was right there behind the back seat. So there was the back seat, there was the glass, and the gas tank was right there behind the back seat, and the bumper was right against the gas tank. And that was the design, ugly and like that, and that was the design. And it was cheap, the Pinto. So you had the Mustang, and then you had the little Pinto. And so it was cheap. And so affordable. They sold a lot of them. And I guess a few years into the production, they had a bunch of bad accidents. And when they got rear-ended, boom, gas tank blew up. Why? Because it was sitting right there against the bumper. Well, when the bumper went in, there was no place to go but into the gas tank. And the gas tank had gas in it. With all that compression, blew up. Physics. And as a result of that combustion and explosion, if somebody sat in the back seat, guess what happened? Not good. Was not a good story. Not a good outcome. So they had a lot of problems. So they came to, I guess, the corporate executives, and they said, hey, we have a problem. There has been a miscalculation in our design, and this is the outcome. What are we going to do? We should recall all these cars, which we probably are going to go bankrupt, nearly bankrupt, or pay all of these lawsuits and expect a whole lot more lawsuits. Are we going to recall all these cars, go nearly bankrupt, Or are we going to just ignore it and not say a thing and expect a whole lot more lawsuits? Or what are we going to do? And from what I understood, which later I think became a pseudo-criminal case, the decision was, shh, don't say a thing. It will cost more to recall all these cars than it does to have a few lawsuits. And we settle them a few $1 million. But if we were to recall, it'd be billions and billions of dollars. We almost go bankrupt. Regardless of how many people die, we'll just... And that was the story, which was a bad story. And that's what I read in the business school, which I don't know the accuracy of. So I can't say it's 100% accurate. I wasn't in the boardroom and I don't remember it being 100% accurate 20 some years later, from my recollection. But the point of it is that these kind of issues do come up in business very often, where we get to make decisions that are tough, very tough, and very, very, very difficult decisions that could cost dearly, and it's really life of people on the line, and or major finances, being ethical, putting ourselves at risk financially versus not being ethical and getting away with it as if it were, and all these things. But in terms of that effect in the DNA, spiritual DNA we talked about, when we do that, I've learned, and it's hard, it's very, very hard because of the environment of the business, just globally a little bit, not maybe more than a little bit, is not conducive to being 100% honest almost, because of this kind of things that are going on a global scale almost. And so you feel like, okay, well, I'm playing in an environment where I'm, being exploited. What's going on? So, it's hard and it's a challenge. But the spiritual energy is there, and your internal energy and your DNA is interconnected with your calling and with your purpose and with your direction and where you're going. It's a major balancing act. So we get to decide for ourselves on a day-to-day basis, decision by decision basis, moment to moment, interaction to interaction. How am I going to handle this interaction? How am I going to handle this situation? How am I going to handle this dealing with this individual? How am I going to handle this dealing with this company? How am I going to handle this with this situation so that I best protect this connection and the internal DNA connection with my spirituality, because these have to remain intact. My connection with my guide, with my connection with my internal compass, and my connection with my internal DNA. These are very important. Extremely important, because when we lose these kind of major connections, We become disconnected simply, right? And we end up not getting where we are supposed to be. And it's like you win a little, you lose a lot. Short-term gain for long-term loss. So it's not good. It's better to lose a little, gain a lot. And that's how it works. Okay? And that's the three spiritual connections that exist in a leader's life that needs to be protected and acknowledged and kept in mind. The spiritual guide, the spiritual compass, and spiritual DNA. These are the three very important spiritual guides and connections of a leader. We need to keep this in mind and protect them, because otherwise you lose short term, you gain short term, you lose long term. I've learned that the hard way, and I'm sure you have to. For the young folks who haven't experienced it, it's good to prevent. Okay, I guess I gotta return this item. I keep buying these and it doesn't work. I have to do it using my finger.